Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to From Paranormal to Normal. As usual, we have some technical problems here in the studio, but as long as we live, we will always learn something new. Today, we are actually going to talk about living off the grid. And we had Dan Wills this here before, but also that time we had a lot of technology problems. So we are trying to do it again. So welcome to Dan Willis, and this time he also brought his wife with him, Rebecca Willis.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How
Excellent.
about you?
Yeah, what's the time in your place right now?
11:06 a.m.
Okay. Here is over 8 o'clock in the evening, so it's a big difference. So, yeah, let's talk about living off the grid. What inspired both of you to live off the grid self-sufficiently?
I'll start for myself. I grew up in a family that went camping a lot, so I fell in love with nature and the whole idea of breathing clean, fresh air. So I lived in the big city near Los Angeles, and I made plans in my 20s to move up to Oregon. So I just started working really hard at my grocery store job, saved a lot of money, and then finally in 1984 moved up here, and knowing that I could live much more cheaply in a small town than the big city. So I just kept saving money, and I had plans to someday live off grid, growing my own food. So a lot of things transpired while living up here, and then finally I met Dan. So thankfully I'm here now living off grid, and I absolutely love it. It's so rewarding. Love having my hands in dirt and growing food, and yeah, that's basically how I ended up here.
Okay. So what are some of the advantages of living off the grid?
Well, I, on our last show, Kate, we did, as being one of the top secret military witnesses, revealing that essentially our planet's been technologically hijacked. There's advanced technology such as free energy, anti-gravity, as well as advanced medical, that we could have completely another world. But, people seem to need to worry about, shelter, water, food, and other basics in order to live on this planet. A lot of people feel like they're enslaved, working 9 to 5. Basically, they're distributing their money that they make to the landlord, to the utilities, and there's no end in sight. There's kind of like a squirrel cage of continually paying bills. In the meantime, welcome to the evolving planet Earth. We have to work with the system that we have been born into. Some of the advantages of living off the grid are, one of the big ones is reduce expenses. You don't have electric bills, you don't have sewer bills, you don't have water bills, you don't have all these bills because you're essentially, independent. You're also, you have immunity to the infrastructure that we're dependent upon. If anything happens, any kind of disaster, EMP, earthquake, the money system collapses or anything like that, you have a certain immunity to that infrastructure being self-reliant. And when you're self-reliant, you're being your own power company, your own water company and everything, you learn how to fix the basic things that you have that are supporting you. And so you learn how to do these things, and the feeling of being self-reliant and self-sufficient is a wonderful thing. And the security, knowing that if the money system collapses, if a disaster hits, all the food shelves will be emptied. If you're growing your own food and you have your own independent system, it gives you that feeling of security. Not to mention, not least, is the environment. You create a small carbon footprint. You act as an example. As Buckminster Fuller once said, who was the creator of the geodesic dome, you could say. He says, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, to build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And so when you put your money into supporting sources independent from non-sustainable corporate controlled sources, in other words, for example, if you buy organic food rather than pesticide-laden food, you're supporting the organic farmers with your money versus the big agricultural firms that use unsustainable practices, and that's some of the advantages of living off grid, Kate.
Yeah. I also think that if a lot of people, if they actually knew how much poison there actually is in our food, that I think that most people will actually go over to the organic. So yeah, I think they'll be in for a shock. But so how did you get started to get to where you are now?
Well, Rebecca and I were both working 9 to 5. She was in Burbank, I was in San Diego. I worked at the Naval Electronic Engineering Center for 13 years, and I kept trying to plan an escape, because I realized that I'm getting my paycheck, but when I get home, I have to give a lot of it to my landlord, my utility bills, and so you never really quite breaking away from the system, and you think, my God, am I going to do this for like 30, 40 years and then become old and I have nothing to show for anything? And so I planned, plan A or plan B. Plan A is figure out something that makes a blast of money, and so you legally that, so the money requirements are irrelevant. Or plan B, if you don't come up with something that's, making a whole lot of money, then figure out how, without reducing the quality of your lifestyle, to have your basic needs covered, being self-sufficient, and just reduce your overhead. Figure out how to have all these things that you're putting money out for every month, how to eliminate those bills. Nobody wants to be, homeless, and big houses and fancy cars are not necessarily the goal of everybody. You can plan your escape, while you save up some money. And an RV is kind of a useful thing if you're planning and sometime in the future to live off the land and live in the forest or whatever your goal is. We both love nature, so we wanted to live out in the forest. We wanted to be outside of the cities. You can have, solar panels on your RV. You can have a long-range Wi-Fi antenna for internet and phone, compost toilet. But the long-range plan is to get some land. Yeah, that's the only way you're going to get out of paying rent or to a landlord. So you don't need a lot of land. My God, we have 22 acres, but we only live on about a half acre on here because I live on top of a hill. The rest of it's, completely, it just giving us a buffer around us. Land value usually increases. So if you were to buy some land, it's one of the best things you could do because your monthly payment will always be an investment instead of giving it to a landlord. And if you ever decide, I don't want to live here, land property traditionally always increases in value. So you always get more out of what you put into it. And if you have an RV, and if you saved up some money for some time and you looked around and you looked at different areas on the planet that, where you look at the weather patterns, the culture, there was some place in nature that you would enjoy to be there for quite some time. What you can do is when you acquire some land, make sure you have access to water, such as a well, because everything else can be added. As long as you have a chunk of land and access to water, if you acquired an RV, you can move onto your land like we did. We lived in an Airstream trailer for 4 years up on top of this with a solar panel array. And while we're living in the RV, so to speak, we then have the ability to be there on the land and slowly build your home of your dreams. We found out you don't need a lot of space to live, actually. In an RV, you have protection from the elements, a place to sleep, a place to prepare your food in the kitchen, a bathroom, a shower. Even you can get these long-range Wi-Fi antennas that can pick up a Wi-Fi for miles away, or you have a friend that doesn't mind sharing their ISP so long as there's no conflict of agreement there to share Wi-Fi. Or, you have to pick up a wireless broadband service in the area if there's no Wi-Fi in the area. That way you can have at least your telephone and communications, Kate.
Yeah. I guess that most people, they can live without almost everything, but without Wi-Fi or the internet, I guess most people are helpless. So what type of building options do you suggest if you are going to live off the grid?
Well, what's all the rage is the tiny homes. Tiny homes.
There's so many ways to go about it. I think everybody's different in how they would approach living off-grid or living independently. The freedom is the best part, freedom of time, I know for us. But the tiny homes are so popular, and they're just so beautifully done these days. So I'm inspired seeing everything out on social media, and there's so many people interested in this. So it's really trending, I think. But
yeah, even here in Norway, there are their own shows with that they are making the tiny homes.
Yeah,
they are traveling around. So yeah, it's very popular. I think that here in Norway, perhaps maybe just a few have tried it. I'm not sure, but this is a much colder climate, and it's not that easy to travel around with these big houses, even if they are tiny houses.
Yeah.
So, but I guess after a little while, it will come after.
Yeah, people are weighing out the amount of work that you have to do and to get money, for example, to build a big house, and all the expense it is to heat and cool a big house and everything like that, versus people are finding that a small space, besides being a lot less expensive because you have a lot less materials, you can insulate it really well. Insulation is a key thing if you're going to be living off-grid, or not unless you're living in a very temperate climate. We live in the Northwest up here, and we get snow every so often. It doesn't get super cold like in some areas. Some people live in very, well, you live up in Norway, it gets a bit chilly out there. It can
be really cold, yeah.
There's, depending on the climate region, with a small home, it's you have less taxes also because you have less square footage. There's many advantages of having a small space, but you can make it in such a way that you have your essentials of, having your kitchen and your bathroom and your bedroom and say your workspace. I mean, you have your desk with your computer or whatever. When you think about, people who have huge homes, when you go to sleep at night, you close your eyes, so you don't really see the space that you're in. When you're working on your desk, you're not really noticing the big space or the small space that you're in. And so a lot of people are finding that if you have like a tiny home, you may be inspired to go outside more and enjoy the outdoors. And some people with tiny homes, they build little extensions onto it, so they have like a little outdoor area so they can feel more connected with nature and everything. And I think a lot of people are willing to give up the big spaces in order to have the environment of nature around them versus, living in the city. There are several alternative examples of houses. When I was a kid, I used to live in a tree house. I had a 3-story tree house, and I was thinking, our parents are going back and forth to work every day, 9 to 5, and paying the bills. But up here in the tree house, there's no rent, there's no expenses, there's no nothing. life is so simple, but until you become an adult and you find out, oh, well, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay rent, you have to pay for your utilities.
You better get a job.
Yeah, you got to go to a job, you know. So
and you also have the problem that if you're having a huge house, you also have the maintenance that you have to all the time need to fix something because over time.
A tiny home's easier to clean too.
Yeah, cleaning too.
And you can move them around. You can travel and go from place to place.
And you can find out where everything is. You may have to build if you're a collector of stuff, then you may have to have a tiny home and build a little barn shed to put all your stuff in. You know, because some people have to have a lot of stuff. But
and the problem is that also if you do have a big house like I have 600 square meters. On 4 floors. So this house is a lot of clutter. So I'm going to reduce the whole thing. So I'm going to move into a smaller place. Maybe I will get myself a cabin or something and turn it around to be something in between of an earth, what do you call an earth ship or different kind of combinations and make it my own style so it can fit here in Norway.
There's something to be said for the minimalist, you know, or, you know, where you have your life, you simplify your life, you know, you have like, humans have a tendency to collect clutter sometimes, you know, and, you know, keeping it simple to what you need, you can focus on, you know, evolving and enjoying life. Other examples of alternative houses, you know, besides tree houses and things, or cob houses. Cob houses are kind of cool. Some of them use straw bales, and what's cool about those is they have huge insulation, like they're like R40 or better insulation, because you have these huge walls, and then they put the cob on. What's kind of neat is it's kind of organic inside. It's kind of curved and rounded, the walls and everything, and let's see. Anyway, sorry about that. Let's see. Underground homes is another, you know, like the Hobbit homes. What's wonderful about underground home designs, and they have these structures that are pre-made that you can just put in and cover them, and they're completely leak-proof. And what's wonderful about an underground home is that you can grow your garden on top, and you can have this massive amount of insulation of the earth, and that's the main advantage. And you can make it so that, you know, you have windows facing the south and take advantage of passive solar heating for underground homes. So we chose a geodesic dome because it has a strong structure against hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and the cement on the outside because of this particular design. There's wood geodesic domes and there's cement geodesic domes. We did the cement because if you live out in the forest, you sometimes have forest fires. You don't want your home to burn down. Hemp home.
I think that there's been a lot of people that have been really dreaming about concrete homes when all the fire has been going on in California and over there. Yeah. It has been crazy to watch.
Oh, yeah, we're surrounded by fires. It keeps getting more intense every year, it seems. Hemp is just gotten legalized in the United States, you know, industrial hemp. Hemp is an amazing product that is so environmentally friendly that you can make houses out of hemp, which is kind of cool.
Sounds weird, but I have heard of it. So why not?
Yeah. And shipping containers, you know, shipping containers aren't super expensive, but people have done amazing things with shipping containers. They look like ultra modern homes. You would never think it was a shipping container, but you have this really strong structure of a shipping container, which can be really well insulated with the walls. And so here's like instant wall structures, you know, doing a shipping container. And so that's some of the different alternative examples. We recommend doing an alternative house versus, you know, just a regular wood frame house because of the ability to use massive amounts of insulation, which really reduces your resources needed to heat and cool the house during the summer and winter. Okay.
Yeah. So how did you both put all of this together? How did you start with this?
We started in 2004, and it took us a while to work on it. It's our art and crafts project, but we had an issue of a lot of leaks in the dome, and geodesic domes are prone to leaking. So it took us a few years to get that down, but it was 2 years ago, we found this company that would silicone paint the entire dome. And we wouldn't have one leak. So we are so happy to say we got the leak problem solved. So now we can move forward and finish the interior drywall and mudding, which had to wait until we had the leaks taken care of. So,
yeah, you don't want any leaks because you can get mold in your house, and mold is very unhealthy. We with the geodesic dome, especially a cement one, you've got triangles, and so where the triangles meet together, it has vulnerabilities for leaking. So that's something to be aware of if you're planning on doing a geodesic dome. The strength of the dome, though, you can be in an area where it has tornadoes, hurricanes, and like in Florida, like where our friend Tom is, earthquake proof, like we is in California, also Oregon here. Most important is fire resistant. That's one of the main reasons we got the dome. Besides, I like the geodesic shape. One of my fellow witnesses that joined me in Washington to testify, Dr. Carl Wolf, who recently passed away, he witnessed dome structures on the far side of the moon. So apparently the extraterrestrials like using domes as well.
So if they're landing in your place, they will not feeling homesick then. So how is that dome insulated?
The dome is a excellent question. It's about 7 inches of foam. It's mostly foam. Okay. The inch on the outside is a wire mesh with an inch of concrete on the outside. And so what we do is in putting it together, while we lived in the Airstream trailer, which we constructed a solar array. So while we were living in the trailer or the RV or whatever for a temporary place, we had electricity for power, and also, we put in a sand trap filter, which is kind of like a septic tank, but people can also use composting toilets. Composting toilets, I know they're used over there in Norway and Sweden. That's how we started.
So the dome actually arrived from Florida on a big giant truck, and it came in big giant triangles piled on top of each other. And we hired a 73-year-old dome guru to come out for 2 weeks and teach us how to put it together. And at first it seemed all, fun and everything, but then the reality sets in, and you've got a lot more triangles to do, and lugging big buckets of cement and filling the seams with cement. But anyway, we did it. He left after 2 weeks, and we were on our own, so we did it, and it was quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures that you've been putting out, Rebecca, and from your window. I guess it's from your TV room window, living room. The view is just stunning, and I must say I was in envy on that view.
It's so relaxing to just look out the window.
Yeah, we decided they offer a lot of pre-designed floor plans, and we decided I have this because I've worked in the past with unusual science and technology. I had this interest in sacred geometry and how patterns in nature and everything, and how some of the structures are based on sacred geometry. So we did our own design, and so we put all the different angles and geometrical ratios in the window that you see. is all mathematically related to golden mean ratios and having to do with, see, the fullerene, which is basically the buckyball, after Buckminster Fuller, is basically made up of hexagons and pentagons, which is a basic structure throughout nature. Even our DNA is made up of that. And so based off those mathematics, we built the rest of the house in harmonic, I guess you could say it, mathematical ratio to be in harmony with that, using golden mean ratios and square root of 3 ratios and all that. When we broke the ground, Rebecca and I, the kit arrived, like she said, on a big semi truck across the United States from Florida. We started out putting up. Well, first we did the foundation, and we highly recommend a radiant floor, because the radiant floor is just so wonderful in the winter, because what happens is radiant floor heats the objects, not the air. And so you have this uniform, wonderful heat all throughout the whole dome, where you can have your heating source outside. We use a wood boiler, we put the wood in outside, it heats the water. It's like a wood-fired water heater, you could say, and circulates the hot water into the floor and keeps it nice and warm. So once we put the foundation down, put all the plumbing in and the radiant floor, we put up a rib system of 2x4s, which made the geodesic dome into into the shape it was with the 2x4s. And then we had a huge crane come in and put the 300-pound triangles in each of there's about 67 triangles or so, put them in the in the places. And once they were in their places, then we had to go up on the top with cement and pour in between the seams and link the wire mesh together. And so once it hardened, then we removed the 2x4 rib system on the inside. Then you had the whole structure is hardened, and it's extremely strong because it can withstand like 250 mile-per-hour winds. Any triangle that there's pressure on, all the rest of the triangles in the dome, support them. That's why, the military use them on the dew line and for radar and stuff like that. They're just extremely structurally strong.
It seems like quite a big puzzle. You know what puzzle is?
No.
Puzzle. That if you're taking a picture and you are cutting it up to a lot of pieces, then you are putting it together again. Isn't that what you're calling a puzzle?
I don't know what that word means.
No. Okay. But you do understand what I say. If you take a picture of something and you take the scissor and you chop it up in several pieces.
It's a puzzle.
A puzzle.
Puzzle. Yes, it's a sacred geometry puzzle.
It is definitely a puzzle. Yes.
It was almost for a joke to ask, did it was a piece left?
Oh, well, a couple triangles were a little teeny bit off, and we had to shave them a little. And
well, it's a learning curve. You find out, what contractors that you work with are good and which ones are a disaster. And you end up learning a lot yourself. I had to pick up my own books on plumbing and electrical codes, and when you do it all yourself, at least if things go wrong, at least you know how to fix it.
So what gives you the electricity now? Is it just a solar panel, or do you have something else too?
So we run on solar. Is there anything else?
The wind generator is pretty worthless. We have a wind generator as well, but it doesn't. When it blows really hard up here, but most of the time it's still. So 98% of our power comes from solar, And, you know, in my involvement for 10 years working with scientists and inventors and finding out there's a secret system within the patent office, then anybody has a solution that has a solar panel that's more than 20% efficient gets given one of these national security orders that gets suppressed. So unfortunately, we have these obsolete technologies, but still, you know, using, 17% efficient or whatever solar panels, you can, the important thing is to size your loads. In other words, the amount of power that you consume. There are some things that are extremely power hungry that you want to avoid, that can be substituted with other things that take this sip on power, just very little power. For example, we heat the house with about 5 to 7 watts of electricity. We use a Grundfos pump that was designed over in Europe that because of the expense of electricity in Europe, they made very highly efficient pumps. And so that circulates the hot water and keeps us warm. All the lighting is LED lighting, doesn't take, and we use dimmers on it, and you can look on a watt meter. You can see that you just take a small, if you want to adjust it. We also use occupancy sensors that when we go into a room, it turns the lights on for us automatically, which is a handy thing. And about 1 minute after you leave the room, it turns the light off, so you're saving on electrical power. Computers now have become very highly efficient. A lot of people use tablets and notebooks that just sip on power. You don't want to use anything electrical that uses for heating.
No hair dryers.
That's the problem here in Norway, because a lot of houses in Norway, they don't have any fires though. So they are heating their houses on electricity. So they are really in a bad struggle if the power goes off. So that can be really, really cold. And normally, if you are getting a lot of snow, the power lines is getting down when the trees are falling over them, and it can go several days before the power is back. So what do you do if you don't have any, to fire up with? For myself, I'm using the electricity to heat the house in the middle of the night. But as soon as I'm getting up in the morning, that goes off, and then it's the fire. So trying to reduce the electricity bill as much as possible. But the problem here in Norway is that they are all the time saying, oh, do this, and you will save money. But we are paying rent for the lines that the power are going through. So I remember when I was buying my first house, when they started with this, that was the cost of the renting of that power line was half of the electricity bill. Now it even tripled. So if I'm paying 1,000 kroners for the electricity for 1 month, I can assure you it will be around 1,500 or almost 2,000 for the rent.
Wow.
So they are killing you one way or another. So even if, for me, I'm using LED lights, I'm using just the power on the night, and I have 1 washing machine a week, perhaps, and a quick dinner, and it's not much power that I use at all, but still, my electricity bill doesn't go down. And it really pisses me off so badly. So I'm so looking forward to my next house, because if there are power connected to that house, I will cut it off.
Yeah, the power companies, a lot of people get mad at power companies. They want maybe $30,000 or so to run power up to where, and, for a fraction of that, you can put together your own solar system, Why would you not want to do that, And that's the other thing about getting some land that's out in the forest or something. A lot of people want to connect with nature. They love the beauty of nature, love to be in the forest and trees and a beautiful environment, rather than looking at your next door neighbor's wall or the freeway going back and forth behind you or whatever, or power lines running all over the place. People want to live remotely. And living remotely is why you want to be off the grid, because what you can do is get property that's much less expensive because there's no power out there. And because there's no power available, you get a much better price and you get to be remote. And we love living remote. And also on heating, I forgot to mention, another option in building your design of the house is something I wish I would have done, is to do geothermal, where you can run pipes and things into the ground that takes advantage of the earth temperature. And I've seen places that are, you know, in pretty cold temperatures, and the house is reduced considerably in the amount of heating that's required because of the assisting with the geothermal.
I even saw a video where they were making hot water. I think there was a compost pile. Right. So they had this long wire inside of it that they were bringing the water through it, and it was nice. And it was really hot water. I think that compost pile was working for almost 3 months before they had to, get a new compost on it. So that was really brilliant.
There's so many good ideas out there.
That was almost boiling water. So that was brilliant, really.
Indeed, Kate.
Get a subscription to Mother Earth News magazine or something. In my 20s, I had stacks of them in my apartment.
Yeah, I know for sure that I will try a lot of different kind of new things on my new place.
Yeah.
This place, I'm just keeping it as normal as possible, because the new owners, they will figure out in what way they will live, and most likely they will follow the hamster wheel as most people. I'm tired of the hamster wheel, so I want to get out of it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that now that when you are living off the grid and you don't have all these big bills anymore, so are you getting rich and traveling for the money that you are saving, or what are you doing?
Oh,
we just save our money and live off our budget, and very happily so.
We live lavishly like millionaires on a bigger budget. Yeah. No, we have a lot of, what's wonderful is to be able to have free time to not have to worry about, oh, what am I going to do to hustle for some money, to make some more money to cover us for a while. If you've got hardly any expenses, you have more free time to enjoy your life, to explore. You know, some of the things that we've done to, I like to give a lot of number of tips that cutting overhead expenses, which, you know, even if you don't live off grid and you're not in your future planned house of the future, there's still a lot of tips here that you can use now to start, you know, saving some money and incorporate. You know, some of the basics, shelter. I'll go over them one by one here. You know, a well-insulated house is important to save money on cooling and expenses, and heating, like we talked about. Water, you got to have a well or stream or some source of water. You have to have water on your land in order so you can grow food and shower and everything, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? Here in Norway, I'm not sure how it is in the US, but here in Norway, we are having this own little tiny machine that can measure how much water that goes into the house and how much water that goes out from the house. So we had to pay taxes for both ways too.
Well, that works out great because we consume very little water. And in fact, if you do an aquaponic greenhouse, for example, to grow your own food using fish in a system that it doesn't utilize up the water because the water is continually being circulated. And so the only water that you lose is through evaporation. So you have this wonderful garden where you're not like pouring all the water into the earth and it runs off where the plants don't get very much. And if you're doing an aquaponic greenhouse, because the plants are basically getting, you know, mainlined right from the fish poop, so to speak, so they grow much faster. And so you hardly use any water. And then with water, you can use, if you're designing your house from the ground up, you can plumb your gray water so that as long as you're using, you know, safe biodegradable detergents and things, you can plumb your gray water so you use it for your garden and other non-essentials such as, you know, flushing your toilet or whatever like that. And our well pump, for example, runs on 4 solar panels. It pumps it up 550 feet down into the earth, up to the top, and then it pumps it up, this is on 4 panels, pumps it up another 800 feet up to the top of the hill and fills a 2,000-gallon tank. And then we use and that's using a Grundfos system. And then we use a very low wattage pressure pump. Normally pressure pumps take like a kilowatt, you know, power when you use it. We have one that uses about 240 watts. It's by Dankoff, makes a low pressure pump. So it hardly takes much power on that. And then when we, before we go into the shower, we have a timer we tap, and it's a circulation pump to take the hot water. And so you know how people have to go in their shower and sometimes they have to turn the hot water on so you don't get it. You know, so it's immediately you're not getting your hot water right away. It circulates, and so you don't waste the water going down the drain. You cycle it through, and so that when you jump in the shower, it's exactly at the warm temperature that you want, and you're saving the water. We use infrared faucets, and we also use low flush toilets so that, you know, you just put your hands there, the water comes out, and it turns off. You don't have any time to turn the valves off and on. So all these little things help on saving water. For the sewer, you know, you can do a compost toilet if you wish. You know, septic tank. If you use a septic tank, make sure you drop in every 6 months digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes eat all of the, it's like a green biological thing. It eats all the, so you don't have to pump it out every so often. And on our toilets, we use kind of a bio bidet, which helps you be clean and use less toilet paper as well. For electrical power, you know, like I said, you need to, I highly recommend looking at the labels when you buy things on what the wattage is or the kilowatt hours per year. I recommend getting an inexpensive watt meter so you can plug things in and see what things actually pull for power. You know, notebooks, tablets for computers use very little power. Some of the new TVs, the OLED, are more efficient. LED lights on dimmers and occupancy sensors, high efficiency pumps like the Grundfos that only takes just a few watts of power in order to, you know, circulate. So you need to size your solar array and your battery bank. Unfortunately, we are in transition. We're still using archaic lead acid batteries that a lot of people who are off-grid use. They're maintenance intensive. They don't hold a charge for the very long, but they're good for about 5 or 6 years, and you have to spend a whole lot of money and replace them. New technology is now out. Let's see, IQ Storage and Tesla is putting out lithium-ion batteries. The lithium-ion batteries is a better way to go than the old lead acid. But new technologies are right now emerging using graphene and solid-state batteries. There's a whole gamut of new technologies that are just now bursting out of the seams in the science areas that that we may have solutions that, you know, it's mostly the storage problem. Generating the power is not as big of a concern as being able to store the energy. So when you're watching TV at night or on your computer and have the lights on and everything, and when there's no sun shining, you want to be able to have enough power in order to run everything. So battery storage is very important. As far as food, you know, what people are finding out is that if you eat high quality live organic food, it means you really need to eat less because your body's getting the nutrients that it needs. You'll also be healthier. Going to like growers markets and local farms and things. If you live out in the wilderness, you usually have like some type of little local farm market where all the local growers come and bring your produce. So, we're a big fan of eating live organic food, for your health. And if you have an aquaponic, you have fish as well. And so we recommend, constructing a greenhouse. The aquaponic is a great way. As we said, it recycles the water, so you're not having a huge watering expense for irrigation.
Have you guys made yourself a greenhouse, or?
Not yet. It's in our plan to do an aquaponic and a greenhouse. For now, we have our dirt garden, which I really love. I just think it's amazing therapy to get out there and get your hands dirty and watch your food grow, and then just go out to your garden and pick food for dinner or your meals. So, but that is our future plan, to have an aquaponic system.
I was just watching this kind of video of a greenhouse that was actually built down into the ground. So it was more likely just the roof on top of the greenhouse, and the walls was down into the ground.
Oh,
so they were actually making
a great design
in the winter time because of the temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you live in very cold climates, you get that earth temperature situation that makes it much more much more favorable for the plants and things. For trash and garbage, everybody creates trash and garbage, unfortunately, on this planet, and it goes in the wrong places. We recycle anything that's we have like labeled bins for paper, cardboard, plastic, glass, and non-bio, meaning anything that's non-organic biological waste. Anything that's compostable, in other words, things that we can put into our compost pile for the garden, goes into the compost pile. So the only thing that's left for the landfill, which we only go there about once every 6 months, which really reduces your expense for waste and also helps the planet too, is that, anything biological waste that can't be composted, and anything that's not in any of the categories that we just mentioned, that's the only thing that we take to the landfill every so often. So it helps that way. For heating, as we mentioned, we use a wood boiler, and we have a lot of old dead trees in the area. So you got to get out there and be lumberjack with a chainsaw and make up your wood piles. And what it does is the forests need to be cleared off of the old trees anyway that are dead and dying. And they work great for heating the home. We like the boiler outside because you don't have any smoke on the inside. You only have the radiant heat. But I realized that not everybody can afford one of those, and a lot of people choose to do a wood stove on the inside. But there's still good wood stoves that don't put a lot of pollution in the air, and some people choose to do that. Also, you can bake in the winter and use the oven that, as far as cooking goes, we use propane, but in order to save money on propane for cooking, which we don't use a whole lot, we have like 4 7-gallon tanks that we put in the back of the pickup, and we have that filled up. The reason why you save a lot of money rather than having a propane delivery truck come and fill you up, because they tag a whole lot of extra money on to, we have a big tank, but we keep that for emergency backup only, and just tie into the line. And then every month and a half or so, we just got to switch tanks, and you save a lot of money on propane that way. Also for cooking, if it's sunny where you are, solar cookers work great. We have one.
You were reading my mind, because I was just going to ask you about solar cookers. So.
Oh, they work great. They work great. In fact, you can make your own out of an old satellite dish. And if you're handy at do-it-yourself stuff, you can take a satellite dish and take some tape from the store that's used. It's kind of like a reflective kind of tape, put it on there, and it will boil the water. So we also use a a passive solar wall on the south side of the building that in the wintertime, everything's kind of sealed up, and so we get fresh air from the outside that the heat from the low low angle sun in the winter heats the air, and so we get warm, fresh air coming in through a solar wall. Plus, we use these solar tubes, which are these glass vacuum tubes, and only because they're highly efficient for the amount of space they take. But other people can use regular flat panel solar hot water heating panels as well. So it stores it to a tank, and then that saves on the heating expense. So in the summertime, we don't need the wood boil. You don't want to have wood being all summer long. So it gives you hot water all during the summer months. But during winter months, the wood boiler kicks in. For cooling, heating and cooling, we use an evaporator cooler, which normally in an air conditioner takes like a kilowatt of power. That takes less than 1/10 the amount of power. Plus you get fresh oxygenated air coming in, and it's like an ocean breeze. It's wonderful.
That's nice. Do you have any links, different kind of links to all of the different systems that you're using that you can give us so we can put out on the page?
Links to all the ideas and to products that we use that help us.
That solar wall and
like solar wall.
Yeah. Well, you can Google. You can find different products. I'll try to put some links in the below on the video in the future to all the recommended products. It's taking a while to sort all these out. In the summer, we also run a diverter valve. That's the radiant floor. Rebecca's got a beautiful garden and a big tree orchard, and we irrigate in the summertime. And what it does is it runs the cold water that's down deep in the earth through the radiant floor and cools the floor in the summertime. So we use it for both heating and cooling the floor using radiant tube. And last but not least is communications and entertainment. Everybody's got to be communicated and they need to be entertained. So either share Wi-Fi with a neighbor or get your own wireless broadband account. You've got to have a connection to the internet in order to take advantage of this. For $50, you can get an OBI 200 adapter and plug it into the internet, get a free Google number, and you have now a free telephone, no monthly bills. For a cell phone, we only pay we have cell phones each that we have to use. We only pay $10 a year for our cell phone.
It's just a backup communication.
It's a backup emergency communication. Mostly we use Wi-Fi on our phones, but we have a pay-as-you-go plan. So it only costs 10 cents a minute when we have to. But if you have an emergency situation, you're lost out in the middle of nowhere, you need to make a phone call or whatever, you have that ability. But normally when you go into town, there's these little apps that you can get that's Wi-Fi finder apps. You can see where all the free Wi-Fi spots are all throughout your town. And you just go there and you can check your messages, you can make long distance calls, talk as long as you want. You don't pay anything. So
yeah, that's great. Well, I see the clock is ticking here. Do you have some wise words at the end that you will share?
Oh, just the last couple of ideas. Amateur radio, we both have our ham radio licenses, so we talk within 50 miles of each other for free. If you're connected to the internet, you have entertainment, you have, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Gaia, all these different things, and also free-to-air satellite's an option too. So all these things are free. You don't have any monthly cable bills, and so that's the rundown, Kate, on how to reduce your expenses, and this is the path we take. I know there's different ways to accomplish the same thing, but we love it.
Yeah, the more you trim away, the more freedom you have, the more money you don't have to give out to somebody else every month. And that feels amazing. Dan's done an incredible job of trimming that all away. I mean, our overhead is just so minimal. We pay food for our cars, gas, insurance, but that's pretty much it,
It's a fun challenge, though, to live with zero to no bills as much as possible. It's a good feeling, you know.
I believe you. I'm so looking forward to start my own journey on this to be self-sufficient. I really do. Because I'm so tired of being in that hamster wheel that you are putting together all your bills every month, and then you will see how much you have left, and okay, will I survive till the next month, the next month.
And that's stressful. So many people are so stressed out because they have to make that monthly payments to all, you know, their utilities and their bills.
And if the 0 point energy ever gets released, it'll be so easy for everybody to go live out in the middle of nowhere, and you have a little energy device that will take care of all this, a lot of it for you.
Yeah, I didn't ask you, but have you tried to, put together some magnetic stuff so you can get free energy yourself? Have you experimented?
Oh, that's a long story.
Yeah, that's for another show.
Okay, because I have a lot
10
of
years meeting with many scientists and inventors that had energy devices that work, but because of the suppression policies that have been in place for decades.
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole nother story.
Because I have a lot of ideas myself and pictures that I've been drawing down on the magnetic things. So yeah, I want to make my own power.
That's awesome.
So if I'm not going to share it with others, I'm going to at least have it for myself. So I'll be sufficient in all kind of ways as possible.
Yeah.
So I think that when I'm outside traveling, I'm using just a small tiny suitcase that you bring with you into the plane. I'm using that suitcase even if I'm going to stay away for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, and it feels so nice and light and easy to go everywhere. So when I'm getting home and I'm seeing my huge house, it feels like it's like too much that you are trying to drag around with you. It's impossible. So I already started to declutter my house.
Yeah, that feels good.
So forward to start on my new project and the smaller house.
You know, we support you, Kate, and we hope we inspired some of the viewers out there to you can do it.
Yeah, we all can do it. And you know what? I think it's strange because most people, they are so brainwashed to think that living off the grid is difficult. So I had one man coming here from the electricity company here for a few weeks ago. And I told him that, you know what, I'm so sick and tired of all the bills that I'm paying to your company. So in my next house, I will say bye-bye to you. And then he's looking at me and said, you know, it's always so difficult. I said, no, it's not.
We can actually get rid of you. Snap, cut the connection.
That's what I actually will do. Okay, I see that we are running a little bit over time here. Before I said goodbye to Dan and Rebecca and all of you out there, I will remind you to take a look at the homepage and take a look at the GoFundMe project that I have. I'm trying to raise money so I can rebuild and fix up 4 houses for 85 Tibetan small kids. So they will be having a nice and dry house and not getting the monsoon in, or right now the windows are bad, the roof are leaking. It's a very bad condition for the houses. So I really appreciate all the helps that we can get. So take a look at the homepage and join in, and feel free to share our program. So hopefully we will see you next Friday. Bye.
Okay, bye, Kate. Thank